Hello and welcome to the Be Awesome at Facility Maintenance or Management, whichever word you'd like to use on the M piece. My name is Joshua Peach and I am your host here, and I am joined by a couple of awesome human beings. One who's going to be with me more often, hopefully all often, but he's going to be the summertime co-host, none other than Mr. Paul Anastasi. So Paul, first of all, welcome to the podcast and thank you for your commitment to being the co-host with me on this wild and crazy train ride.
Oh, it's my pleasure, but I think you should explain the title Summertime.
Summertime. Some of the time you're going to be here and some of the time you're not. And the reason for that is Paul decided to do something called retirement. And a lot of times retirement involves golf and fishing, which Paul loves to fish and loves to hunt. And it's got a grandkids and family, but he retired and somehow he's got more work to do in schools than he had when he was a full-time employee, it seems like, between mentoring and part-time facility director and advising and consulting and all the things you're doing. So when time allows, we all have one thing in common. That's 168 hours in a week. I think Paul's found a couple extra hours somewhere because I don't know how he does it all. So as time allows, Paul is going to join us and share some of his insight. One of the most knowledgeable people in industry that I know. So hopefully he makes it more than just sometimes. So
more than not.
That's it. More than not. So one of the things that Paul and I talked about that we're really excited to do, and something that I've been passionate about in my career, is recognizing excellence in education in the operations and maintenance field. Most of the work that people like Paul and their teams do is often unnoticed. If it doesn't break, according to noticing it, then everything worked fine. And the reality is there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes between cleaning, repairing, preventive maintenance. A lot of stuff breaks that we don't know about that gets fixed before we can recognize it. And what we want to do on every episode is talk about an employee or a team or a district or an institution that just has a great story, because we don't hear enough of them and everybody's on the island. So yesterday, I mean, we're talking 24 hours notice, I come up with this grandiose idea of a guy that I met, and Paul actually, both of us met the same time in November, Aaron Polanski, and I'm gonna let him tell his story in a second, but I think that the way we met and how we've stayed friends is really kind of neat. And I think one of the things is to do things naturally. And you'll hear more about Paul and I throughout the series, but Paul saved my life. On March 13th, 2017, Paul gave the Heimlich maneuver to me. I was eating a prime rib sandwich. It was delicious. He'll tell you that the bite I took was probably the size of a Volkswagen. I disagree. It was probably more like a bus because it was just fantastic. Needless to say, I stopped breathing, then choked, and he revived me. So anytime there's food involved and Paul's around, I sit close to him. And Paul chose a table at the Massachusetts Facilities Administrators Association right up front, which I hate to do. I like to sit in the back. But I'm going to sit with Paul. So I sit next to Paul with my back to the screen and to the stage of where our afternoon speaker is going to be. And there's 6 or 8 other speakers. And I sit down and we just start gabbing. I mean, we just start doing what we're going to do on this podcast. And this guy's sitting across from me and he's writing stuff down feverishly. And I'm like, man, is this like a reporter or an investigator? Or did I do something? Did I hit somebody's car when I pulled in today? And
I didn't know we were supposed to take notes. I was getting nervous. I said, am I supposed to be taking notes here? He's taking all kinds of notes.
Self-incrimination. And then during the whole time, in front of me was this card, this thank you card. And I looked at it and I just kind of smirked. And all of a sudden, guy starts taking down some notes again. And so we get to the end of lunch. And all of a sudden, Kenny Wirtz, our friend and executive director of the association, gets up on stage and he starts introducing the keynote speaker. And all of a sudden, up walks away this guy taking down notes. And all I'm thinking is, man, the nerve of this guy. He's been sitting here for an hour. He could have got up and gone to the bathroom. Now the speaker's coming. What's going on here? And lo and behold, he was our afternoon speaker, Aaron Polanski. And he gave one of the most moving talks and openings for the conference. He opened up and I had the difficult job of closing the show the next day. And he told us some amazing stories of his journey as a superintendent, as a principal, as an avid wrestling coach and all of the life stories that go with it. I think there was one that involved 6 or 7 balls and letting one drop, right? That was one of them. But one of the stories he told was about one of his custodians. And this is what we're going to do at the beginning of every podcast. We're going to talk about someone in the field that did something exemplary that was noticed or maybe wasn't, and we're going to notice. So Aaron, without further ado, first of all, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then dive right into the story.
Sure. Aaron Polanski, I'm the superintendent director at Old Colony Regional Vocational Technical High School. And we're a vocational high school in Rochester, Massachusetts, with about 550 students and about 100 staff. So we're relatively small. I'm relatively small as well. I'm 5'4". I have 6 children, wonderful wife, and had the pleasure, as you stated, of sitting down at a table. And really, as you were talking that day, I thought to myself, unbeknownst to me, this guy should be speaking today. Like, this guy is so entertaining. That's a nice mug, by the way. I just want to commend you on your mug. You're on mute.
Oh yeah, Paul, where's yours? I got to get the t-shirt that says you're on mute, idiot. Yeah, sorry.
But I remember thinking to myself, like, this guy is funny. He's got the whole table laughing. We're all engaged. And I just sat and listened and literally was taking notes. Had no idea that Josh is a speaker and very sought after. And sometimes you just hit it off with people. And I'll tell you, if I dive in, I think our goal is to hit it off with people in education. Our goal is to connect with people. And on my first day at Old Colony, meeting the staff, I said to one of my administrative teammates, I'd like to have us sit in a circle instead of rows in the cafeteria, which we call our cafetorium because we're a small school and it serves as a cafeteria and an auditorium. And when you don't have an auditorium, what that means, and again, these are the things we might not think about, that means that somebody has to move the chairs. And, I said, who could I talk to? I'll move them, but I need some help. Who could I talk to? And the person looked at me and they said, you don't ask Dolly to move the chairs because she just set them up in rows thinking that's what you wanted. And now we're going to change it. And they said, don't mess with Dolly. She's been here for a really long time. I went over to Dolly and I said, hey, Dolly, I'm Aaron. I'm the new superintendent. And I don't even know if we've had the chance to meet yet, but I'd love to move the chairs. And she looked at me and she made a face and then she laughed and she said, I could do that. I said, I'll do it with you. And we did it together. And I slowly learned that Dolly runs the show, or Dolly ran the show at Old Colony. And Dolly retired just recently. What I also realized is Dolly runs the show because Dolly cares deeply about people. And if Dolly needed someone to do something, they would do it. And if someone needed Dolly to do it, she would reciprocate. And she had this beautiful way about her. She knew all the names of the kids. She knew the names of graduates who came back to visit. And she could connect with people on a very authentic level and brought something incredibly special to our school culture. And I know that, Paul, you worked in the Newton district, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, Newton schools.
Sure. And I had remembered seeing, just next door to Newton a few years ago, there was a teacher who gave a keynote or the speech at the closing. I think he was an English teacher of the Wellesley, right next door to Newton, of the Wellesley graduation. And it was a beautiful speech. And it had a little bit of a twist to it with a little sarcasm. And I thought to myself, you know what? We have someone who's really good at sarcasm. We have someone who really connects deeply with staff and kids. And I think Dolly Furtado might be the person who we want to deliver the message to our students as they pursue authenticity beyond the graduation stage. And so we went to Dolly and we said to her, hey, Dolly, we had this crazy idea. We would love for you to give the graduation speech. And she looked at us and she said a few things that I won't say, but it was authentic. And she said, I don't give speeches. I'm just the custodian. And I said, just, you're like the cornerstone of who we are. You're all we want to aspire to. You're authentic. You care about people. You connect in like these unbelievable ways, and everybody loves Dolly. And you're not on your own. This isn't an island. we can kind of vet this together. And she said, really? And I said, really? What do you think? And our principal was right behind her. And said, Dolly, you got to do it. The kids would love it. And so Dolly gave our commencement speech and really hit it out of the park and tied in messages that were, that had that flavor of her own experience and maintenance innuendo to it. So it was really well done. And she hit a home run, and she was featured on a bunch of local radio stations afterward and on the internet. And she became an overnight internet sensation. Yeah. I think most importantly, she touched lives. And so we're very proud of what she delivered. Well,
hats off to Dolly.
It's an amazing story. And for one, you grabbed at the sarcasm in speaking, and that's not easy to do. Right. and do it well. I'm that guy. I am that sarcasm guy when I speak, and you're always on that ledge.
Yeah.
And you could fall off very easily.
Right. And she was masterful of it. Masterful with it. And I can't say enough about what she brought. And even now, even after leaving her role, she's now a member. It does. And, the drama club and what goes into preparing a drama production, and the fact that there's a maintenance crew that's behind the scenes of everything we do. And Dolly's that person who did it, and she did it to the nth degree, just took it to a different level. And so I think I've shared the video with Josh. I don't know if he has it, but
yeah, I'd like to see that. Well, one of the things that stands out here is that for me, working on the maintenance side, you as the superintendent identified her, picked her out, and made that happen. So many times, Dolly feels like I'm just a custodian because no one tells her what a good job she's doing. Everyone just takes it for granted. The big story that happens is when all of the teachers come back in September, they all say, wow, this place looks great. The floors are shining. Why? And they'll say to the custodians, you did a great job. Did you get some vacation? How was your vacation? Well, yeah. The custodians weren't off for the 10 weeks. They weren't out of the building. The reason the building looks good is because they were there working all that time. And for a superintendent, I know when I was in Newton, my superintendent came to me at one point. I would do an all hands meeting in August, the last week in August, and go through our regular trainings, our bloodborne pathogens, our adherent trainings, all the things that we had to do. And we'd have a little cookout for all the guys. I had between 96 and 100 custodians in any day. And the superintendent said to me, I want to come to your meeting. Well, I had been there 16 years and no superintendent had ever said, I want to come to your meeting, to see the custodians. And he said, and when I come, I want to bring a long stem rose for any custodian that's worked here for 25 years or more. And I'm like, you're going to give a rose to my custodians? These are the union guys. These are the guys. And so I being a good soldier, I said, absolutely, let's go, let's do it. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm right behind you. Meanwhile, in the back of my head, I'm saying, you're going to give guys roses? This isn't going to work. Well, he showed up right on time, right on cue. I brought him in, and he got down and told the story, and then said the HR director came with him with this box of roses. And he read from a list and called up, probably at that point, there was 11 or 12 custodians with 25 years of service or more, and gave them a long stem rose. And you had to see them chest up, pumped out, standing straight, smiling for that picture. It was like, and I'm going, I told you it was going to work. I never doubted you for a minute. It's perfect.
Great.
But no one had ever done that for them before.
Yeah.
And you know, as much as we're here to talk about the people that make it happen behind the scenes, for you as a superintendent to identify that and to pull that out of Dolly, I think you deserve a ton of credit for that. And there's not a lot of people that I see that get that done, coming down to the maintenance.
Yeah, you're spot on, Paul. I think that the whole thing with leadership, it does start at the top, because the folks that are down the chain, if you will, they don't have that leadership experience. They haven't had that education. They haven't had that professional development. They're not going offsite to events. So what they see from their business official, their superintendent, their maintenance supervisor, show them enough of that, and they're going to want to emulate it. It's like I made the comment before we came on about the 212 on the wall back there. You show that enough times and people say, well, what does that mean? Well, 211, water's really, really hot. 212, that's when steam and inertia, that's what made trains go in the old days. The difference of a degree makes all the difference in the world. One of the coolest things, when you're telling the Rose story, I went to Frederick County Public Schools. I talked to their facility staff, and they get challenge coins. They cost a couple bucks a piece, and they don't just give them out. They don't just say, oh, here's a challenge coin for you. You have to do something to earn it. And you have it with great pride. I actually had a challenge coin flag. It's like the flag behind me, but it's got little racks in it so that I can put them up here, because I just think it's the coolest thing. I have such pride about it. But that's, if they've never gotten anything and they've never gotten that recognition, that little whatever it is means the world to people. And we've put this position of like it has to be something huge. And I had an experience in January 6th. I went to Garland ISD. It's the 13th largest school district in the state of Texas. They do it big in Texas. Like, Aaron, you're big into wrestling. This district has their own arena, and it's not like attached to a school. It's a separate building that holds thousands of people, that's owned by the school district, that they have MMA fights and wrestling events and all this stuff. And I spoke there to all their operations professionals for the day for 5 hours. And in walks this guy, and, rather unassuming, sits down in one of the rows, and I'm talking, and I said something about money. And all of a sudden, everybody in the audience just kind of shrugged up like this. And I said, did I say something bad? And they're like, well, the CFO's in here. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. The CFO of this 55,000 student, $1 billion, whatever it is, budget, took the time out of his day to see what you guys are learning. If you don't see how valuable that is, then everything that I say means nothing. So it's really, it's all encompassing of everything. And Aaron, hats off to you for all that you're doing down there. One of the things, and stay here, you can stay with us as long as you'd like, as long as you have time. But one of the things I want to touch on, because one of the things that I wanted to start this podcast for is guys, men and women like Paul, they're hard to come by today. There's a lack of skilled laborers in the millions. And it's not like I have sales expertise. You can learn that trade pretty quickly. Learning to be an electrician or a plumber or a contractor, mechanic, blue collar jobs, that doesn't come very easily. And people don't understand that. And your school, along with other Voc Tech schools in the state, is where our kids can actually learn these skills. And a lot of people don't understand that. So would you take a minute to just kind of talk about the Voc Tech programs? Because they've evolved. Before, it was where kids that couldn't handle public schools would go. Now it's where we need people to go, so when they get out, they can make $100,000 or more and not worry about college degrees.
Yeah, I think that, there's a misconception that the students take one route, and it's really multifaceted. So a student, who I spoke to just recently was in our machine and tool technology program. He's actually highlighted on our website and on LinkedIn right now. His name's Zach Susi. And Zach, when he was here, he studied machine and tool technology. He went to Westfield State University. He's studying sports medicine, and now he's applying to med school to be an orthopedic surgeon. So he's going to understand the intricacies of the stuff that goes inside your body that's built with a machine. Or if he were to work in medical sales, he would understand the nature of that because he worked on those machines and he created at the ground level those pieces that play an integral part in those professions. Now, there might be other students who go right from a machine and tool technology program into industry, and they do significantly well. Like you said, they can make six-figure incomes. We have an electrical program, electronics engineering, computer science, carpentry, electrical. What we've done at our school is we've created an entrepreneurial strand and an early college program, because if you say to a student, what do you want to do when you're older? And they say, Well, I want to be a carpenter. Who do you want to work for? Well, I want to work for myself. Well, you know about carpentry, but what do you know about entrepreneurial
Right.
business? And then they say, well, I really hadn't thought about that. And we say, well, that's good. You're only a freshman. We have an early entrepreneurship program where you'll earn up to 30 credits for free. And you'll have those 30 credits to pursue something with your entrepreneurial spirit upon graduation.
Mhm.
A lady who graduated from our CAD program and went right into the Eisenberg School of Management at UMass, and she'll start as a sophomore. So she's saved a year of tuition. So I think, there are students who will go into industry. There are students who will go into college. We've got kids who go to WPI to study engineering. But there, to your point, I think that there used to be this perception that vocational schools were for students who couldn't do the regular thing, the regular
Right.
thing. I
Yep.
put quotes up, right? Vocational schools are a place for students who like to have a hands-on learning environment and paint a bigger picture than the old school curriculum allowed them to. And if you said to me now, hey, Aaron, what would you like to do? Would you like to go study 4 or 5 subjects all day long and never have a chance to use your hands? Or would you like to learn a skill or a trade that could help you to pay your way through school or allow you the independence to be free of college loans and be close to 6 figures upon graduation from high school? I'll take option 2.
Yeah.
And it's no knock on our traditional schools. I think we have to find ways to build those types of programs in our traditional high schools as well, because what it does is it helps attendance. Kids feel more connected to what they're doing. And we have a 97% attendance rate and a 99% graduation rate because kids feel connected.
Yep.
They're just not opening a textbook. So that's a little bit of a background on the vocational model.
Yeah, and they're learning still the high school stuff. My mother's a Spanish teacher at Blue Hills Regional Voc Tech, and she was a Spanish department. They didn't have a Spanish department before she got there. And their kids in senior year, they're going to Spain and Costa Rica and all these places on a spring, an April vacation, but it's not a vacation, it's a tour for their class. So they're learning, all of the things that people learn in high school, but they're also learning that skill, which is vitally important. As you're telling this story, I've got my longtime friend, Chris Martinetti, banging in the basement, putting in a generator plug, electrician, entrepreneur. And, I'm sitting here going, well, I was down there before this podcast came on. And I said, hey, what am I going to owe you for this? He says, oh, we'll just settle up later. And I just sit there and watch the hours go by. And I go, oh, boy, this is going to be fun. But there's a great opportunity there. And I love the tie-in with the entrepreneurship. So last thing.
Let me see. Hold on. Let me see. You're putting in a generator plug the day before the storm?
Yeah, of course.
I got that right?
I wasn't sure if it was going to hit.
You had to wait until it was over 8 inches, right? And then you said, now I'll put that plug in.
No, I wanted to wait it out for you guys. So now that I've done it, we're not going to get anything. So now you can rest well knowing that I've spent all this time and effort. I've put my friend through the ringer to get this plug done. And now nothing's going to happen. Yeah. It's kind of like last year. We've had a generator here since the house was built in 1991. And the hadn't been used because we had a generator. When we actually had to go use it 20 years in, we pulled the cord and the cord just disintegrated because it had just never been used. So got a new generator, one of these doozies, 30 amp, 9,500 watt, whatever. And so the plugs don't marry each other and something with the fuse box. I don't know. I should have gone to a regional Voc school and done, electrician. And if nothing else, I could have done it for myself in the house. So,
or if you had a work order system, it would give you a work order saying you have to PM your generator. It's time to check the cord. It's time to run it.
Well, listen, there's products out there. My buddy Pete Durand, who's been on my other Be Awesome podcast, he started a service, which Aaron, he's got to get hooked up with you. He's working at it for a company that's a concierge service for homes that they do all the work. They come out, they do a layout of your house, the age of all your equipment, your roof, everything else. And then you have something go wrong and you call them and they connect the electrician, the plumber, all that stuff. So those independent, people that want to come out of high school learning a trade, tying in with one of these companies, there's a bunch of them out there, but Pete's is going to be the best. But yeah, I've had a backed up sink. Generator's got to get hooked up and my snow blower isn't working and I got a 900-foot long driveway. So I'm excited to take some time out with you guys while I've got all this stuff going on with 30 inches of snow about to dump. So
Remember, you pick the day and the time.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So again, before I jump on and pick on Paul for a few minutes, and again, stay on as long as you'd like, stay through the whole episode. Love to have you. If there's, and I had this conversation with Amy about our 14-year-old. We've had it about 100 times. What should a parent, if a parent's listening to this, and or a child is listening to this, and they're going, you know what, I don't think traditional school's for me, or I don't think that I want to go this path. What's the quickest, easiest, or what's the way that they should go to be considered to get in? Because I know that, first of all, your school's well sought after. All the regional voc tech schools in Massachusetts are sought after right now. So what's the process that they need to go through to be considered to get in?
I think the first step is to simply visit the website of your local vocational school. They usually have a link. Ours is very clear cut. It says apply now.
Boom.
And you boom, 8th graders, they just bing, they click on that link, and then you click on that button, and all of a sudden your life changes.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. You click that button and your life changes. And it's the basically I want to love school button. And when you click on the button, all of a sudden, and I have parents who call and they say, until my son or daughter ever came to vocational school, they didn't enjoy school, and now they love it. And that's a pretty special feeling, because I think that we've really added something where students feel like they're invested in relevance. And to be a junior or a senior and get the opportunity to get paid to go to school because you're in a co-op program is pretty special too. You know, these kids go out to work when they hit their midway through their junior year. They have certifications and licenses, you know, in each of the 13 programs we offer. So, you know, a student graduates and they have, you know, several different certifications and licenses in their respective area. And that's a step beyond what some of their counterparts may have. When I was at Bristol Aggie, I remember a student coming back and saying, you know, I'm in classes with people who are TAs because they're working on their master's or their doctorate, and we're talking about things, and I've got all the answers already. It feels like review. You know, my botany class feels like review. And even our students in the UMass engineering programs, I know a professor who calls me and says, your students know this already, which is a really cool thing to hear.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're doing advanced coursework. Our students are accelerating at levels that really allow them to differentiate themselves. And so I strongly encourage people to hit that button and really think about the fact that you're not committing. You're simply opening a door, right?
Yeah.
You can make your decisions later. And I hate to sound cliche, but we truly do miss every opportunity that we don't try to take advantage of. And, you know, why not open the door and at least explore and make your decision at a later time?
Yep, the old Wayne Gretzky cliche, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah.
Yep. 100.
Yeah.
I tell you, we were coming on, we were going to recognize someone in your team, and you're dropping straight gold, because what you said about kids wanting to be at school. And I'm just sitting here saying, man, wouldn't it be great to be sad being done with school? I mean, I was excited to be done with my 5th year of high school. I couldn't get out of there fast enough.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Word.
I was excited to get out of there, and I ended up spending an extra year. But that's a rarity that you find that, and I think that's what leaders and organizations should really be shooting for. Is I want my kids, meaning my students, to not want to ever leave here. And it's not like a protection blanket. It's that they know that they're loved, they know they're protected, they know they're cared for, and they know that they're going to make a difference in the world when they get out of here, and get them excited for it. I'm going to pick on Paul, but you said Bristol Aggie, and I don't know if I told this story at the roundtable lunch. Did I tell the B story, the flyer, the B story of Bristol Aggie? I'm giving us I'll call it a sales pitch at Bristol Aggie, I think somewhere around 2011, 2012. And I'm in the main administration building. For those of you that don't know Bristol Aggie, there's 3 agricultural schools in the state. I think there's very few in actually the country. And Bristol Aggie is one of them. So that means that they've got farmland, they've got livestock, they're teaching all of the bits and bytes that go with growing food and making food and animal care and dairy. And so I'm in this meeting and I'm killing it. Like Bristol Aggie's going to be my client, and I'm going, giving all my best stuff out there. And all of a sudden, this person busts the door open and comes running in, and we say, "What's going on?" And there was a delivery, and there's apparently these bees or bugs. The flies are bees, specialty bugs that eat cow manure. They break down cow manure, and you guys bought like 3 million of these bees, and they came in a box, and somebody opened them in the admin building. So these things started flying all over the place. So I'm sitting here going, if there was ever a time where I was like on and I got booted for manure eating bees, it was at Bristol Aggie, and I'll forever remember that one. So it's about 10 years ago. It's hysterical. But listen, I appreciate everything you do. We appreciate everything you do. Keep up the great work. You do have, your authenticity. You have Be Kind for your socks, which you can spell in periodic elements. Before you can plug in everything else and stay with us. But before I forget, how do people get a hold of you? You do speak for a living on the side to make a little extra living and to share the world. How do people get a hold of you?
My email is Aaron L. Polanski, AARON Polanski, POLANSKY @gmail.com. My website is Authentricity, combination of authenticity and electricity. It's that feeling you get when you meet somebody who's authentic. So it's authentricityspeaks.com. And
Awesome.
You can check out a little bit more there.
We'll put everything and the commencement video on the show notes, and we will put it on our LinkedIn page, and really appreciate it. And congratulations, you're not getting any snow, because I can hear these guys hammering. The plug's almost done. So, so Paul, you're on the hot seat, my man.
Okay, go for it.
First of all, Paul and I go back to 2004, but Paul, you'd never guess it because he's, looks like he's all at 25. He has been in the facilities world forever. It seems like, right? Probably 30 years or there somewhere thereabouts.
Yeah.
In schools. And then before that, you went to Wentworth, right? I never even confirmed this stuff. This is why I love going hot mic. Like, hey guys, thanks for coming on. Let's hot mic this thing and see how it goes. But you were a Wentworth graduate, right?
Wentworth graduate.
Yep.
And back when I went to the traditional public schools here in Watertown, there was no tech school. We had it all either in the high school or you went out and got it. And we had a work order, a work release program, so to speak. And we, as a mid-junior, you could, as long as you had a job and your parents' signature, you could leave at 11:30 and go and work and earn credits for going to work. It was a work study program right out of public high school. And in my family, my dad was a master electrician. He worked maintenance at Draper Lab for years. But you were either a produce salesman or a tradesman in my family. So my dad, we could do a whole episode on my dad's family, how my grandfather took him out of school because he had to sell bananas in the North End to make money to help feed all the kids.
Yep.
And he had to sneak to school at Watertown High at night to get his high school degree. So, I never saw a football game in high school because Dad had me being an electrician. I absolutely hate electrical. I can do it. There's nothing against electricity.
Should have had you over here doing my generator plug. Then we could have done this in person, and I would have probably not paid anything.
I went into carpentry and remodeling at Wentworth. I did construction management, and I got my degree from Wentworth. That's where I started, and then from there I worked in Navy ships for 9 years. It's like I could make this construction thing into anything. It's like, okay, so it's just not square. It's a ship. It's round on the bottom, but it still has to have support. It has to have structure. It's amazing how they float. But it was, so I went into the Navy, and then from the Navy, I went back out jobbing for a while. I went to private industry as a steel detailer. I learned drafting and steel detailing for a Canadian American company, Can-Am Steel, and then got taken out of that job because the downturn in the construction business. took us out, and they were very nice about it in private. They said, you still have a job with us. It's just starting Monday. It's in Point of Rocks, Maryland, and not Needham, Massachusetts. Yep. So they were nice to tell me that I still had a job, and I declined the Point of Rocks job. Yeah. And then went back working with my hands again. It's back to that thing. My father always said, if you have a trade, you'll always be able to put food on the table. Yep. And it really came true in my later life. And then as I was jobbing, someone told me that there was a job opening as a facilities manager in the Watertown schools where I grew up, and 3 generations of us here in Watertown. We're dug in deep. And I went to the person who was a business director. We were hockey buddies because I was in the rink, and 3 of my kids were playing on 4 hockey teams. So I went to the guy that was at the rink that was the business manager in the schools. And I said, what's up with this facilities job in the schools? He said, don't do it. There's a new administration come in. Don't do it. They're a real pain in the necks. They're not going to, don't do it. Yeah. And to tell me don't do it like that, it's like, all right, I got to do it. Yeah. So I went in, I interviewed, and, started out as a custodial supervisor in this maintenance department in Watertown, and then just grew it from there. And here I am 30 years later, trying to retire. Yeah. I'm not trying too hard. No. I retired for all of 3 months. My wife was a principal. I married a principal, and she was retired ahead of me. And after 3 months, she said, you better get out of the house and do something, because you're like a caged lion. She says, you're driving me crazy. Yeah. So here I am 4 years into retirement, working more jobs and for more communities, because there's just so much need out there. Yeah. There's so many communities that need help in our field. Yeah. You hit something right there, and as you said it popped off in my head, because as you know, I've been in this industry on the service side of things, providing software and services to schools since 1996. And when I was 22 years old in 1996, I was happy to have a business card. I never made it through college. I'm a 3rd year community college, Massasoit Community College student, 94 to 97. And I'm still considered a 2nd semester freshman, I think. So education wasn't my thing. Getting a good career wasn't a possibility, I didn't think. And all of a sudden I got this opportunity at 22 to sell software, and I had a nice salary and a corporate credit card and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is great. And I didn't know the purpose of it. I didn't understand why. And then I came back in 2004, and it really took me a couple of years, because I used to say to you guys, I'm like, I don't know why, how the hell do you guys do what you do? And it was you and Kenny's talk about the importance of the facility department working with the special education department. And it wasn't just kids in the special education department, it was kids in general. As I've evolved through this and understand that there's 3 million kids that are homeless or in foster care, wildly underserved. It's not about the best 8 hours of learning of their day. It's the best 8 hours of their day that facility and maintenance and operations professionals are providing for these kids. And you have look, share what you want, don't share what you want, but you had a very touching story where it was, directly with your kids, where you made the difference and the impact, if you want to touch on that. But that was a big reason where it was a light bulb that went off in my head and goes, that's why these guys do this. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll tell the story, certainly, but it's amazing to me how many of our staff, custodians and maintenance guys, really don't think or don't understand how much they are affecting the population, and what they do for the population in the schools and what they do for education. They think because they're not a teacher, they're not helping all of these students. And so many times I had to explain to them how they are. You're giving them a clean, warm, dry place to be for 6 hours a day to learn, so that they can go out into the world and be, be someone out there. And they're doing it because their room gets clean, their room gets clean every night, or the HVAC is running and you got fresh air, and God knows we know what MERV 14 filters are now, and that the filters get changed and the air exchange. But to get to the special ed story, back in 1981, start dating myself because you told me I was 25. Sorry. Back in 1981, my wife at the time and I had a set of twins, and everything was great. Young marriage. This was child 2 and 3. And everything was going good until it was time to walk. And one of the twins, they were in those little things with the casters, those strollers, those walkers. And the boy girl twins, my son Mark would push. Now they say how twins communicate without speaking. Sometimes it's true. I've witnessed it. It's not witchcraft. I've watched them do it. When she wanted to go somewhere, she wasn't moving her legs. And when she wanted to go somewhere, she would look at him, and I don't know what she did or said or sounds, and he would come and push her across the floor. But her legs would just drag. And so they always said, never compare your twins because it's not fair. One always develops better than the other and more than the other. And so after a while, it was like, she's just not doing what he's doing. She can sit up, she can sit on the floor. We need to take her and see what's going on. So they did all of this study, and they found out that because he was so large interuterally, that she developed on a 90-degree angle the last 3 months inside. And that's when kids get their fine motor skills and their processing. It all starts that young. And so it was absolutely amazing when they told us that. So we had a doctor say, there's a good chance that your daughter might never walk. And that just throws a parent into a tizzy. And it's through my career, it's helped me talk with special ed parents who are saying their kids aren't getting the service, or their kids, we need a ramp, we need this. And it was like, I get it. Trust me. I know, I've been there. So she went through school with on-time testing. She was on an IEP, which is an educational plan in Massachusetts to help students that need special services. They'd work physical therapy with her. She didn't have the muscle or the brain retention to put her hands out in front of her when she was falling. I'd put her in a sled with the 2 boys, push her down the hill, and the boys being boys, they'd tip the sled over, and they'd put their arms out and stop, and she would come down like a torpedo. Her arms were by her side, and she'd be skipping down the hill because she didn't have that sense to put her arms out. So they had to teach all that to her. And then, fast forward 15 years, my daughter went to the University of New Hampshire on a field hockey scholarship. All expenses paid. And it was like, yeah. And it wasn't, yeah, because she walked. It was, yeah, because they paid the bill.
Yeah.
Dad's off the hook for this one. But, and now she's a special ed teacher. She teaches a full autism class right here in Watertown. We're all still in Watertown. There's a big fence. We can't get out of town. The family can't get out. We're stuck in here, which is a good place for us to be. But, Kenny, you've heard Kenny and I talk about that. It's so much of the maintenance that needs to be done, or that people need to be aware that affects that population of kids. A stained ceiling tile. You have a kid in an autism class, and you got a stained ceiling tile, and he's not watching the teacher at all. He's watching that tile and twisting his head. And it's like, change the tile, guys. You've had the work order for a week or two. Change the tile. Those swings that you see them in the elementary schools, the big swings that hang with the trapeze under them. And it's like, I can't tell you how many of them got delivered to the loading dock. I said, oh, not another swing, people would say, and people don't realize that without those swings, those kids can't get through the day. Right. That swinging motion puts everything back for them. So our force, our maintenance force, our custodian force directly affects not just the special ed population, but the whole population in the schools. Yep. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, and thank you for sharing that. I put you on the spot. I know you've shared it. You've shared it a number of times, and now you're sharing it to the world. But I think that the outcome was amazing. And I think what that's done also is it's made an impact to all those that you talk about as far as getting out awareness. I think one of the things in the beginning part, and I'll never forget this, when you talk about your staff doesn't know the difference that they make. I spoke at a regional school. I'm sure you know it, Aaron, Assabet Valley, years and years ago. This was probably early on in my speaking career, and they had me come in at like 9:30. The facility director at the time said, "Hey, I scheduled it at 9:30 because I didn't think the third shift guys were going to stick around, because the third shift guys, everybody looks at third shift employees like they're not people, and the brooms don't talk back, right? And there's truth to that." And he said, "But they stayed. And he said, I'm sorry. And I said, don't be. I'm happy. He goes, these guys are tired. They might fall asleep, but they stayed. I don't know why they stayed, but they stayed. And what I found was when I asked the question, which I ask a lot, is why do you do what you do? Why do you get up every day? And don't tell me it's a job, and don't tell me you have to, because you get to make choices in life. And the first person to raise the hand was one of the third shift custodians. And he said, in my 20 years of being here, I had 2 students when they went to graduate that thanked me for the work that I did, that they saw me leaving after working all night, that they knew that I worked all night to get the school ready for them to learn. And these 2 kids made my career worthwhile. And I go, wow. Did people ask you this question often? Because you said it so eloquently and so perfectly. And I know you were just talking to that broom for the last 9 hours. So what's up? And the reality is people don't ask that question. And it's important, because if they don't know, or if they don't get to share it, then they don't get to feel every day, right? And they don't get to understand that why and what's important. And that what's important for you, now you can pass that on so people know, hey, when a parent comes in and they're going a little batty because there's not a railing on the ramp, you got to understand why. Because their child has a unique need, that they need that ramp and they need that railing, and they've gone through that. It's not because they just want us to do it. So we need to listen to them, and we need to make sure that we do the best that we can. I had an experience like that when I was in the property management space, where someone said that, and a young 19-year-old me was like, oh, what the hell do they need that for? Because I'm an able-bodied and I can walk, and I can't put myself in the perspective of someone that looks like they have no problem being able to get in and out, but they might have some debilitating disease or some degenerative disease, or whatever the words are that could cause that issue that you don't see. So no, that's good stuff. And I'm glad I remembered the school that you went to. I mean, I'm pulling out brainwaves of stuff that we've talked about in passing that I'm just like, wow.
Anyone that's done our job long enough, I remember Kenny Wirtz early on saying at the association meetings, we do this for the kids. We do this for the kids. And a lot of the newer guys saying, I do this for the money. But then after a while, very short into it, I think like when you do your first high school graduation.
Yeah.
And you see that, it's like, wow, that makes it worth it right there. Or if you stay around in a community long enough to see a kid that needed help as a preschooler or a kindergartner.
Yeah.
And then you're there when they graduate 12 years later. It's like, wow, yeah, we're here for the kids. That's what it's all about right there.
Yeah.
And each other too. I think.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I just think that I can't tell you how many times I walk in the building at 6 a.m. and my principal, I know where to find him. He's in with our maintenance staff, because this shared belief that those people are the cornerstone of what happens. And they do take care of, like you said, Paul, it's the kids, but it's each other, and it's the staff. And once we realize the power that we have to impact one another, a smile, something as simple as a smile can change the course of someone's day. Josh, you're masterful with it, but it's the little things that we do, because everyone does the big things, right? Yep. Everyone goes through the big things, the motions and the expected behaviors, but something as small as a smile or a thank you note or a rose.
Right.
Right. It's not that it was a rose. It's that someone cared enough to make someone else feel valued.
Right.
Right.
And to see the principal in the custodian's office or in the boiler room, my first 10 years as a facilities director was here in Watertown, in my hometown. And, I had a principal at Watertown High School in his shiny black loafers, down in the dirty, grimy boiler room, wanting to know what's wrong, how are we going to fix it, or what's your plan? And it's like, wow, you don't just sit up in that big office up there and talk to the kids all day. You care about what I had a great story. We had one of the old boilers in the high school in Watertown. It had to be 2 stories high, real old. It was on a red brick foundation. My plumber calls me and says, listen, we got a problem. He says, he's looking at the mortar lines on the brick foundation. He said, this was a hairline crack. He said a week ago, he says, and I've been marking it and measuring it every day. And that hairline crack was then big enough to put a pencil in. So the boilers, which weigh thousands of pounds, were tipping. That boiler was tipping over and it was crushing. And he said, this is what I've been doing for the past 2 days. He said, when the boiler tips this way, I flood the valves on this side. I flood all the flutes and it crushes the brick and it straightens out. But then it tips again after a couple of days and I put water in it. He said, what? So right away, I called for a temporary boiler. It was, January. I said, I had to book a temporary boiler. They said it's going to be, 5 days out before we can get it there and get it hooked up. So he said, what do we do? I says, keep doing what you're doing. I says, and if you stress the power lines, the electric lines enough, I said, just pull that fire hook and get out of the building. But every day for 5 days at 7 o'clock, he stayed all night. He stayed all night. We let him go home and sleep for 5 or 6 hours in the middle of the day. We had someone else cover it and he came right back. Every day for 5 or 6 days, the principal came down with an egg sandwich and the newspaper.
Yep.
Back then, people read the newspaper. We wouldn't have got a cell signal there anyway. But that meant so much to him. That this down below, what was happening down below, no one knew up above.
Yep.
Education went on, classes went on, the building was warm. No one knew. There was a small group of us that knew what was going on down in that boiler room.
Yep.
And we never missed a day of school. We never skipped a beat.
Starting in June of last year, you guys didn't get to see my talk in November. But in my talks now, when it's time to celebrate, I challenge the audience to contact me when they know that they have asked every interaction that they have in a 1-day period, how that person is doing. And you think about that. How many times have you, when can you tell me the last time that you had every interaction that you had one-on-one with someone that you asked them, each and every one, how are you doing? We don't do it. Something gets caught in our way. Look at this guy. He's like, yeah, I did it today. Here it is. Oh God. It's like I set him up. Rapport before reports. I love it. I love it.
See?
Yeah.
We didn't recurse this at all.
No. But that's, I mean, but when you do it, when you make that conscious effort to do it, what you hear and what you see is nothing short of amazing. A lot of people are afraid to ask how people are doing. One, we don't want to know how they're doing because we're probably not happy ourselves and we don't want to hear about people being happy. But two, the majority of people you ask how they're doing are so confused that you're asking them that they don't know how to answer. Yeah. And it's like, I had a customer service call that I made to a company and the person answered the phone like, thank you for calling, how can I help you? And I'm like, hey, how you doing today? And it was like a pause. And it's like, good. And I just said, well, I hope you're doing outstanding by the time I'm done with this call, because I want to make you smile. And it was like, I'm calling because I got something broken and I'm trying to make this person smile because they're just not having a good day. But it's those little things of showing that you care, that authenticity. And I didn't know that it was authentic in electricity. I just thought it was a great tagline. Now I love it even more. But that authenticity of I care about you and here I am goes so far.
Josh, you're going to have a lot of people. I think you're going to have a lot of people from a lot of schools watching your podcast.
Yeah.
I want to say this. I've never felt when the three of us are hanging out, I'm saying to myself, man, this vibe is just so good. And you say things and I'm like, man, oh my gosh, this is right.
You're going back and grabbing a clipboard.
I just want to say, this is the geography of our building.
Yeah.
By color, this is the section of the building, right?
Yeah.
And this is where all the teachers and the staff, the nurses, the guidance counselors, right? And what we do is the admin team is at the top of each column, and every 2 weeks we move the name. So the administrator moves columns.
Yeah.
This is the last 2 weeks, and I still have a week to go. My job is to put next to every single person's name that I've checked in with them. And my only job is to say, how are you doing? Do you need anything? And it might be Scotch tape.
Mm-hmm.
But some teachers say, you know what? We're in the middle of COVID and I'm on the verge of losing my head.
Yep.
And we can say, tomorrow, I need you to take a day for you. Right. And I think that there's such power in what you're saying, because we have to put people first. Everything else will fall into place when we put people first.
Yep.
And I remember Paul's story about when we were sitting at the table, when he said something was going on and he said, get out of the building. And then the community, the really nice country club, took care of all of his people when they had to clear a building.
The boiler that blew up and the custodian didn't call me. Yeah.
Yeah, Paul told that story, but they took care of his people because Paul had established relationships with his community that empowered him to leverage and create a reciprocity.
Mhm.
Yep.
Right. And like I wear my Be Awesome shirt. I alternate between gray and green literally every day. And I carry my Be Awesome mug.
I got to get you some more, man.
Yeah.
Got to want that thing wearing out on you.
And my wife was like, this is like when the package arrived, I was like a little kid. And I have my journal.
Yep.
Right. I have my Be Awesome journal and I write in it.
Boom.
So I'm telling you, like, those little things, you might have viewed it as a little thing, but I'm when I wear that shirt, I'm sending a positive message to people, and
Yep.
they say, like, I love your shirt. It's so positive.
Yep.
Yep.
So that little subtle messaging can change someone's day. And I really do believe, like, you guys have this electricity about you where I go like, oh, when you called me yesterday, you're like, you want to hang out? I was like, I want to hang out all day long.
Yeah.
I felt it. That's why I was like, hey, stick around and this thing's gonna happen. The shirt, by the way, the shirt by design was meant to do two things. Well, it's meant to do more than two things, but when you put it on, it's meant to do two things for the person wearing it. The first thing is I call it it's got the no jerk rule. If someone's standing in front of you and they can see that shirt, there's really no chance that they're going to be a jerk to you because it's screaming, be awesome. And if they aren't, then they're not following the rules. And then the other piece to it is every time that you look in the mirror, which you do on an average, depending on how many times you wash your hands and go to the bathroom, do all that stuff, every time you're in front of a mirror, which is probably 7 to 10 times a day, it's looking right at you saying, be awesome, and reminding you to do that. And sometimes you need that reminder yourself because we all get down in the dumps. We got to do a checkup from the neck up and it's just sitting there screaming. And that was the idea behind it. And I'm glad that you love it. And you got the Be Awesome box and I'm glad you like it. It's it's something that I love to hear that stuff because that's what it's all about, right? It's all about we need reminders. You have that 212 on the wall because you need reminders, and the people that come in need to know that they need to be reminded that you're giving your all, and you hope that they're going to give their all so that you can create some steam and some momentum. So no, this is great stuff. I think we're off to a wild and crazy start on this thing, Paul and Aaron. I'm going to have you back on. I think we should have them back on to talk about the Voc Tech journey. I think we should come down to your school at some point and maybe do a tour or do something. That'd be really cool because we're going to do a number of different things. Paul and I are still working out the framework on this whole thing, but what we want to do is we want to educate. We want to educate those that want to get into the profession. We want to educate the stakeholders, i.e. taxpayers and parents, on the importance of the profession because they can be pretty hard, especially in times of COVID and all these things where everybody's a biochemist and everybody understands how molecules happen. And they know what a MERV 14 filter does on a 1958 piece of equipment and at low impact or no impact, a comparison to what the Kleenexes they used to put on in 1958 and all this other stuff. But we also want to try to help boost the profession and see how we get more people involved in it. Because if we don't have people like Paul in the profession, and we don't have people taking care of these schools, then the product that comes out of those schools, i.e. our kids going into the workforce, they're not going to be as excited, motivated, happy, and eager to get out there. They're not going to be eager to go to school. We want kids to be excited to come to school and to say that this is my building and have that pride and sense of ownership. So I think we've got some material to having you down the lane. And Paul, what else you got for us? I think we covered most of the bases of getting us started here. I'm not going to talk about how we were able to commandeer the only hotel room in the Holiday Inn in Salem, New Hampshire that had a hot sauna, or the back deck stories, or I think I was trying to calculate. I was trying to count up how many states you and I have traveled to together, and I got up to I think 13 or 14. So we've gone coast to coast. You and I have been as far as San Diego over the course of the last 18 or so years, and we've had a lot of adventures. We're going to share those but I don't think I missed anything for this first episode. Anything that you wanted to?
I think we're doing good. This was a great opening, and I think Aaron pulled it together perfect. It's a perfect circle here.
Yeah, you and I are just like we're sitting here right here, just letting Aaron drive this thing, because every time I open my mouth, you open your mouth, he's got a clipboard, a coffee mug, or something else to kick it into overdrive, and people are going to go, "There's no way you guys did this unscripted, unplanned with 24 hours." I got a 2-minute conversation and a text thread that I sent to Aaron. I'm like, is this guy listening to me? Because I'm just rambling on, sending him stuff, pictures of pants and things. And but this was great, guys. Paul, love you. I love you, man. I'm so excited for the sum of the time. I almost don't want to do an episode without you, but we're going to be putting these things out so fast and furious. I know that your time is limited, especially if you're out in New York or someplace out where you got no Wi-Fi signal. So we might have to get you one of these global air cards. And Aaron, keep doing what you're doing, man. You are just you are a blessing for us to meet, and just what an amazing, as my friend Les Trackman would say, serendipitous way of it happening, and how it's been able to kind of just grow along. And always in your corner, my friend. Anything that I can do or we can do to promote or help your school or what you're doing, we're always in your corner here, and excited to see all the great things that you guys are doing. And we'll get all of your information, like I say, in the show notes for people to learn more about the school and you and Dolly and everything else.
Likewise, the feeling's mutual, guys. Thank you. Keep loving each other, keep helping people be great, and thank you for the honor of having the opportunity to sit with you. This was an awesome hour. Just awesome.
Episode 1. If this thing goes viral, if this thing takes off and goes viral, which I know that it will, you were on episode 1 or 1.5, because I had to do an intro episode to get us on the platform. So your history in the making. So appreciate you. Glad you could make it. And that'll do it for this episode. This is going to be on YouTube. We're soon to be on Apple, iTunes. We're already on Stitcher, Spotify. We're going to be on Google Play soon. But hit the subscribe button. Please like, comment, share, do all that stuff to put us out into the internet social media world for more people to learn and hear about us. As always, our podcast platforms, if you do a 5-star rating and review, that's clicking the 5 stars and then putting a review where you write something. That's your time. You're taking your time to do that. You get a free t-shirt, free coffee mug, free tumbler, whatever merchandise you don't have, because most of our listeners have something. Whatever merchandise you don't have, we will send something to you in appreciation for you giving us your time and your review. If it's not a 5-star rating or review, don't put it in yet. Give us a call. Send me an email. Let's talk through it. Let's see how we can get better. Always willing to listen, love feedback and advice, but those ratings and reviews make a big difference for us. So call me direct, 508-238-5711. Again, it's 508-238-5711. That's my direct line. You'll get me every time. If you don't, you get my voicemail and it's got a funny message to it. Or email me, Josh, Josh, @beausm.com. Josh@beawesome.com. Tell us how we can do better, and I'm sure I will give you a listen. And you know what? I'll even send you something for the feedback. So this is great. I'm excited. I love having a co-host. I'm excited to be back in the facility management maintenance space podcast, specifically and solely for the great work that people do in education institutions. So if you can be anything, be awesome. And I will see you soon, Paul. And thanks again, Aaron. We'll talk to you all later.
Bye, everyone.